So, hey, Larry, we just talked a little bit about situational leadership, and the last quadrant in the right-hand side is delegation. And we talk about delegation a lot in leadership. It's like, Larry, you need to delegate more. You ever heard that?
All the time.
No, I never heard that
Really?
because when I was in a leadership position, the first thing that I would think of when it came across my desk is, who can I give this to? See, now the primary reason for that, Larry, as I will tell you, is because I was the least competent person in the room almost always. Okay, when I took over these departments and everything, I knew nothing about materials handling. I knew nothing about paper making. I knew nothing about being a vice president of sales and marketing the first time I was doing it. So I was always looking out of survival for me to delegate. So it was really odd. It was very different. So I made a lot of mistakes in doing that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you did. And our clients are highly competent.
So
Um,
because I learned what not to do, rather than teaching people that today, what I would like to do is have you teach them what to do when you're thinking about delegating to something, and then how to do that. But how do you actually do this skill called delegating?
yes. Right. Measure twice, cut once. Like, so let's prepare for it and get as close to, excellent as possible the first time. You ought to delegate more if.
Hmm.
And so reasons or possible indications that you might need to be better at delegation. You don't have enough time to return phone calls or answer emails.
So your deadlines are being missed for the things that are important to you.
You have disengaged employees.
Why am I
Oh,
going to delegate it to somebody when I can do it better than everybody else?
yeah. Or you can't go on vacation because who's going to do your job when you're not there?
When you realize that you have a completely imbalanced work personal life.
I think we got a nice list. And those listening to the video, I wonder if any of these described what you're going through right now. And what I want to cover today is why we delegate, what to delegate, what are those barriers to delegations. Even if we've identified what they are, there's still a few things that might keep us from moving forward, figuring out who to delegate to, and then a really rock solid process to ensure the best success possible. So why delegate? So if you listen to the list, some of the things are all about saving time, right? There aren't enough hours in the day for you to do everything. So one, it's personal, might be selfish, but it is probably the number one answer. Number two, what does it do for your people? It develops them, gives them some exposure to other parts of the organization, builds confidence, those types of things. Three, it moves decisions and tasks closer to the front line, which helps you become more agile, right? Those people that are closest to what's happening, if they are able to perform the task, make the decision, things happen quicker, you're not pulled away, and they're probably in a better shape to make those decisions anyway. Four, it does deepen the employee engagement. So they feel like they're trusted because they are not just carrying out tasks, but they're getting to make decisions and they feel they're more responsible for a bigger chunk of the business.
No, they feel valuable, right? We want people to feel like they're of value,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then remember when we did strengths, we talked about not a single individual is well balanced, but a team can be well balanced. So there are, I would imagine, opportunities where there's tasks that you keep doing that aren't quite in your sweet spot. They're not in your zone of genius. They're not aligned with your strengths. But guess what? Maybe there's someone on your team where they are aligned. So it might feel sort of daunting and maybe even irritating to you, but they'll look at it and go, "Oh, dude, man, this is easy for me. I can do this, and I
You know
want
what's
to do
really
it."
weird about that? You know what's really strange, and this is, I mean, I guess it's part of growing up and being mature. Is I learned this when I was 30, and I was moving out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I had to paint my house to sell it. And I hate to paint, and I couldn't afford to pay somebody to do it. And I mentioned the fact to a friend of mine, and she said, "Why don't we have a paint party? I love to paint." I'm like, "Huh?" 17 people showed up on a Saturday, painted my house in 3.5 hours.
Nice.
It just, to your point, is what we often think this is a part of my job that I have to do, and I don't like to do it. And there might be somebody on your team that loves doing that stuff. And if they love doing it, they'll be happier, you'll be happier, and it'll probably get done a whole lot better.
So that's why we do it. There's a lot of benefits. It's really quite the win-win. So if we do it well, everyone wins, the organization, the employee, and you. Definition. So we talk about delegation in general. Sometimes we talk about assigning a task. So I'm going to use the book, 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. When you assign a task, you're giving the responsibility and the authority to someone to do one thing. And you're also talking about how it can and should be done. When it's a whole family of tasks, we call it delegation. Sometimes we call that a project. So it's larger. In the book, they call about an initial one is a monkey. Multiple ones are a family of monkeys. So when we use the word delegation, it's really the more, it's not just assigning one task, it's really giving more than one, and it's more of a responsibility. So that's what we'll be talking about really for the rest of the.
Part of the problem in the use of the word delegation is we often think of, we either delegate everything or nothing.
Yeah, it certainly could be. There's a lot of nuances to how to make sure the delegation is effective. A best practice is to start with a task, and then to basically move it up as they progress along the curve that you showed in situational leadership.
Because
Yeah.
I can assign you a task you've never done before. And then what am I going to do? I might have to be very directive. I'm going to tell you, this is how to do it. This is who to talk to, this is when to do it, how to do it, and so on. Okay. Now take that task, take what I just told you, and go do that. That action where I say go do it and you do it on your own is delegation for that little tiny piece. Eventually, to your point, is it becomes a bigger and bigger part of their job as they become competent with multiple tasks. Keeping this focused more on a task specific delegation allows people to separate this mindset. I have to delegate the whole job to Larry, or I have to delegate none of it to Larry. Can I trust you to do the job? Well, the answer, that's a bad question. The question needs to be, can I trust you to be competent in all the tasks that are required within the job?
So assigning of a task is what situational leadership covered through the 4 quadrants with differing degrees of directing and supporting. We're focusing specifically on quadrant 4, where one of the big distinctions is the transfer of responsibility. The first step in general is assigning a task, right? So it's giving the responsibility and the authority to someone to carry out a task. And there's a mutually agreed upon, like, what does good look like? What is the completion of this task look like, and how will we check in? The style you use is what Gary was talking about earlier based on where you are. So Gary, would you like to elaborate on kind of how situational leadership and assigning tasks work together?
Well, yeah, so assigning the task is merely letting the person know they're responsible to get it done. Sometimes the challenge that we have with highly competent people in some areas is we assign something to them and then we don't apply the right situational leadership style. We abdicate responsibility as their leader and say, "Oh, go take care of it, Larry. Go, just go take care of it." Right? And you go, "Okay," and it's the sink or swim leadership style. Hope you make it. Situational leadership allows us to take a little bit more of a cognitive and effective approach to this that says, where is the person's competence? Where's their motivation? Are they willing and able? And if they're weak in one of those areas, let's say they're willing but they're not able and they need help and training, we need more direction. So situational leadership allows me to understand, when I assign the task, I assess development level. Do they need direction? Do they need support? Do they need some combination of those two? And then I use either directing, coaching, supporting, or delegating style of leadership, which is appropriate. And what we want to talk about, of course, is this very difficult thing that we call delegating. Mostly because as I think about this, Larry, people are just flat out scared to delegate.
We're going to get into why that might be.
Okay.
Yes. And to your point, it's the assessment on the front end. So we're going to talk about, well, what do we delegate, right? What's the task look like? What's the person look like? Where are they? How does that match up? Running through some quick analysis and say, does that fit the bill? If the answer is yes, we've set ourselves up for success. Now go follow the process flawlessly and everything will be fine. What are those things that we want to delegate? So, and you can play the game with me too. Here's some thoughts. Something that's been on my to-do list forever. Okay. That might be something worth delegating.
Hey, the one I love to is something I hate to do. Let me see who I can delegate this to.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe because it's not one of your strengths, but it could be in theirs.
How about stuff that you're doing all the time that's pretty routine that you could easily delegate to somebody else?
Yes, that is one. And the caveat too, if it's really routine, can you automate it? So if it's important and it's routine, can you automate it? Or I have to ask, if it's not that important and it's routine, can you eliminate it? And what happens?
Who are some of my potential high performers? I want to give them something to stretch them, to really make them work a little bit harder on something to expand their knowledge and understanding of the business or our customer base, or something that gets them doing something outside of their comfort zone.
And sometimes you want to evaluate them. You want to know where your folks are, different capacities. So giving them a chance to prove themselves and get a sense for where they are at any given point. Good.
So one of the things that you mentioned to me once was sometimes getting rid of my favorite things. I don't like that one, Larry. Why would I want to get rid of my favorite things?
Yeah. So we have some people call them occupational hobbies, right? Because we're in the craft because we love it, right? We love that stuff. So we're drawn to do what we like to do. And to some extent, we want to keep some of it. But you know what? Maybe those fall into the category of helping someone else grow. And if we spend too much time doing the things we love, are we being stretched? Are we fully leveraging the capacity of our team? I'm sure at some point Steve Jobs was like, yeah, I'm not going to program anymore. Apple wouldn't be where it is today if he kept programming.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a point when you have to let go of some of those things because sometimes you loved it because you're so good at it and it was easy.
Yeah.
And so for our own growth, for the growth of the team, you got to let some of that go. So those are some of the things to do. So, folks, I encourage you to pretty much sit down with your journal, your PFF journal, jot down some things that might be candidates for delegation, right? Didn't get to it, missed the deadline, could be a great opportunity for someone else, occupational hobbies, all the things that we just talked about. Write some of those down because when we do get together in class, we're going to look at some of those, do some work around them, and might wind up picking one or two of those to delegate.
I'm going to be a pain. I'm not going to give up my favorite things. I'm just not going to. So, why might I not give up my favorite things though? I mean, I guess we call these barriers to delegation, right?
Yeah, these are things that come up for us, right? We can sit down and intellectually say, yes, that's a nice list of things I should delegate. And then a month goes by and we talk with our coach, did you delegate them? And the answer is no. And then we'll dive in and say, why? What are those things? So one of them, which is one of my favorites, is, you know what? Only I can do it. Or you know what? I'm a little bit more of a realist. It's not just that I can do it, but I can do it better than anyone else. Okay. So I don't want to delegate it because I'm the best. Another one is, you don't know my staff. Like, they're nice people and all, but I don't fully trust them. I don't have the confidence that they're going to get it done good enough. Look, dude, delegation takes time, and I don't have any. Boom, 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 stuff comes up. I know how to do it. I know how to do it fast. It's done, over. If I have to sit down and talk to someone about it and explain how to do it, I could have already done it myself. These are resonating with you. Maybe you've experienced some of this.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and like I said before with delegation, it's all about fear, man. It's fear that people aren't going to get it done, and I'm responsible. It's fear that I'm going to lose some kind of control over, the perfection or the quality of the output. I think for a lot of people that are in their first level management jobs that got a lot of praise for their work as an individual contributor. When they go into management, praise and encouragement they get in that job tends to be longer term. It's not immediate accomplishment of work. So there's a disconnect between the immediate accomplishment and what's going on, what you're trying to work on towards the future. So they're starting to feel devalued and obsolete.
Yeah, that that's a good one. And Simon Sinek talks about that with Facebook, which is why we're addicted. We get these hits. Someone liked what I posted. And so we're used to getting some immediate feedback. There's like a dopamine rush.
Yeah.
And when you get into leadership, one of the reasons why I say lonely at the top is it's a longer term before you can get that sense of satisfaction. So if you knock out a task, boom, I got it done. Good one.
You
Thank you.
you, you talked to me once about this around one of the barriers of the beliefs is feeling guilty. What do you mean by that?
I think it's a work ethic of like, I have to lead by example. I have to work harder than anyone else. And what if I give it to you? Because it's kind of hard.
Hmm,
What am I doing?
hmm.
Am I working as hard? I need to be working as hard or harder than my people. And you know what? I look at them and it feels like they're struggling a little bit. Maybe they're working some long hours. So I don't want to overburden them.
Yeah,
It,
so the self-satisfaction sometimes in what you're talking about is if I see you struggling with something and I jump in and fix it for you, I'm the white knight, right? I've come in and I swooped in. Let me take care of that for you, like boom. And it's like this is how smart I am. This is how good I am. See how easy this is. See, because I can do it for you. And the person looks at you like I had this, So now I've really injured the relationship to make myself feel good about something I believe wasn't going the way I wanted it to go.
one of the ones when I think about the top list is like, what if I delegate and they're really good and
Mm.
they get the credit? When am I obsolete if I delegate all this stuff and they're really good? So there's both sides. It's the I don't think they can do it. What happens? Or what if they're all great and they don't need me anymore?
So you want a lot of people on your staff that are just mediocre and good. Not too good, not too bad, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, basically, if you want to live very secure but not grow, and we know leadership, it's a gutsy game.
Yeah.
So if you want to grow, then let's fly in the face of these things. Let's take them on. Homework in our PPF journals would be to 3 columns. One, what is this task that I might be considering for delegation? Two, what are the reasons of the ones we mentioned might be in the way of me delegating it? And then the third one is the beginning of just reframe it and ask the question, I could delegate this if. So, what are the conditions? What do I need to do from a reframe standpoint, a support standpoint, whatever it is, so that I can get over the barrier and actually delegate it? And we'll talk about that when we get together and see if we can't remove the barriers, get an action plan together, and then go execute.
So should if I'm doing this, should I list like all the tasks, as many tasks as I can think of? Just don't think about what you delegate or don't delegate, just everything that I do.
Yeah, it's combined. Yeah, in fact, it's kind of combining the first and second exercise is probably clean. List all the tasks. Then maybe another column is which ones should I delegate, yes or no?
Mm,
What might be getting in the way of me delegating that task? Even if it's a yes, obviously eliminate all the no's. What are the yeses, which are possibilities? So the
yeah.
question is, what should I delegate? and then look at well, there's still barriers, right? And then how do I get over the barriers? And so maybe the final one is, all right, dude, I've been waiting for the magic. Show me the magic, because I know what I need to delegate. Nothing's in my way. I'm ready to roll. Just show me how. You tell me how to do it, and I'm going to knock it out of the park.
Okay, so where do I start?
Look for someone with the 3 C's: capability, capacity, and commitment. So capability is knowledge, skills, abilities, strengths.
So
Okay.
the question is, do they know how to do it?
Yeah.
Or can they learn how to do it?
Yes.
Right? Because they might not know now, but they might know for the future, but you're looking to stretch them. Capabilities, do they know or can they learn how to do it? Okay, I got it.
Capacity. We talked about workload. Maybe they're already working 60 hours a week, and and they just can't for that reason. The other would be resources. So the resources aren't lined up. And for instance, I've heard a couple times, yeah, it'd be great if they could do that, but they don't have a driver's license.
So capacity has a lot to do with things outside of me. Capability to me is like what's inside of me in terms of knowledge, skills, and abilities. Capacity is what's outside of me in terms of time constraints, workload, team members, computers, systems, processes, and equipment.
And the third one is commitment, right? And then so there's sort of the work related stuff. What's in it for me? How motivated am I to do this? Maybe it's because of I like the task, there's some growth, those types of things. Or I see how this is important to a broader goal, right? How does it connect to the broader project, the company, those types of things? And then earlier, Gary was talking about, well, sometimes we're not totally committed because our personal life is pulling us down so much. So make sure that there isn't any barriers in that standpoint. So personally, we're fine, excited about this, I'm committed. That's willing and able.
Yeah, and it gets complicated under the commitment part because I'm sitting here listening to you talk about this, and you may have somebody that you delegate to that has the capability, they have the capacity, everything's really aligned, but they've done it so many times that they're bored. So it's like they're just not that fired up about it, and they can almost do it in their sleep, and they might get it done, but they might not do a great job of it. So there's a lot of factors when you look at these 3 C's to consider when you're going to delegate.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some things I know so my job, same thing. I know how to do it. I've done it before. I told someone I would do it, but I look at it and I'm busy and I can only do a couple things. I'm like, I just don't think if I didn't do it, I don't think anyone would care, right? Because I just don't see the overall value.
Mm.
And so it's a motivation thing. And then, as you know, from a performance management standpoint, here's what we tend to do. I asked you to do something, you didn't do it. Let me show you how to do it again. But if it wasn't that I didn't know how, you are working on the wrong thing. We've now selected the right person. So let's set them up for success. Let's follow a 4-step process to make sure we're ready to go. Step 1, establish the importance of the responsibility. Okay, so go to the why. Basically, before assigning something, let them know why you're assigning that project task to them and why it's so important. So you're beginning to work on the commitment piece, right? So that they understand the importance. 2, clearly define what it is. Here's all the details. It's the what and the when. So get very clear on what you're looking for. This is when you would cover things like what does done look like? What does good look like? The very specific of what you want.
What's the goal?
What's the goal?
Yeah.
How would you do it?
Uh,
What are some thoughts about how to move forward? Right?
so this is what you're saying: employee confirm understanding, commitment, and action plan, so that what their understanding is of the how. Some way, shape, or form, we're going to have a conversation about the how if it's something that they've never done before or that you don't know whether they've done it before.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so you can err on both sides. To your point, go do it, and you don't know how, and I didn't ask you about it, you just shake your head like you got it, and then you don't know what to do. The other side is I start saying, and then I want you to do step B. And you're like, dude, I've done this before. Leave me alone. Stop micromanaging me. So it's always finding that spot on where they are. That's why coaching is so important.
And finally, step 4.
Right. And so, right, we're making sure that they understand, and that we've got a follow-up, right? A way to check in. And again, also negotiated, discussed, um, how often will we check in, right?
How do you know that? How often do you check in?
It depends on, again, the complexity of the task, the perceived capability of the employee, the person taking the responsibility, and what will give you the sense of, the comfort level that they are making progress. So if it's a 10-day process, a 10-day task, you don't wait till day 9 and go, yeah, what was that first thing I was supposed to do again? So you know, depending on how long and complex, when to check in to make sure that they are on track. So what feels right between the two of you?
Well, and this is an interesting one that people struggle with a lot of times because they feel like if I'm checking in too often, I'm micromanaging. And
Right.
the comfort level that you're talking about has to be comfortable on both sides. But I always tell people to lean more towards the side of the supervisor that needs the information to feel comfortable telling their boss what the progress is, if there's a necessity there, or that the progress is being made. And the micromanagement, as you said earlier, is telling someone how to do it. Having a more frequent check-in with some detail in that check-in is not necessarily micromanagement. It's simply getting clear on the progress that is being made or not being made.
Right.
But what's important is checking up on the monkey in a way that's comfortable for both people and ensures the quality completion of the work that's expected.
What I like to say is the accountability is always on the supervisor. The responsibility is the person that executes the task. But at the end of the day, if that task doesn't get done, me, the supervisor, is held accountable. Pulling it all together, hitting kind of those tips top of mind that help make delegation better. One, it's not dumping undesirable or cruddy tasks onto someone else. It is instead a well thought out action and appropriate planning, right? So spend the time getting clear on expectations, and check for understanding. You understand? Yep,
Got it.
got it. That's not good enough for me anymore. So what I want to do is have them think about it. So how would you approach it? Tell me what your next steps are. Think about communication style. Gary's action oriented, I'm process oriented. Sometimes I can let go of some of the details, and sometimes he needs to give me more. And this is a great way to use coaching, skills the whole way. Asking questions, checking for understanding, to make sure that you're both on the same page. I ran track in high school, so it's sort of that you hand the baton off and they run with it. But that's not a good metaphor for delegation, because you're kind of giving them the baton, but you still kind of own it. You're still holding on to that thing. That's delegation. It is, when done correctly, a very, very powerful tool, right? You build the capacity in your organization, you develop your employees, you build the relationship with them, you get more done, and you can grow.
In summary, delegation is a very, very important skill for everybody to learn. I want to emphasize that it is part of a situational leadership process that starts with understanding the competency of the individual, understanding their confidence level, being able to select the right person that you talked about with the 3 C's. I really like what you said, Larry, about slowing down a little bit. And here's the thing, you don't have to get it exactly right. You can get it approximately right. We're going to do this exercise where you look at all your tasks and you decide whether you should, shouldn't, or maybe delegate, and who you might be able to delegate it to and how you're going to go about that. Then we can start this process of intentionally delegating some of the tasks that you've been doing for a long time that you should be letting go. I'm Dr. Gary with my buddy Larry, making good bosses into great leaders with compassionate accountability. Thanks for listening to this latest video on delegation, situational leadership, and all other things. Now you can go out and delegate.